Now, there's no doubt about it that we do have quite a handful of Star Wars TV shows on the horizon by Favreau, Filoni, and even, of course, other creatives that are getting hired by both Jon and Dave. We also have Kathleen Kennedy and Leslye Headland working on the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, which, in my opinion, are going to be very controversial Star Wars TV shows because of what they are doing with those actual projects, and how it's going against George Lucas's overall philosophy of Star Wars. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. Now that brings us to what's been going on with the Acolyte series. Now first things first, we know that it's a very toxic environment for not just Skeleton Crew when it comes to the cast and the crew, but also for the Acolyte. Not quite as bad as Skeleton Crew, but it's still going through a lot of trouble, a lot of setbacks, delays, financial issues, all these different things coming into play, and that's why you really haven't been hearing all that much about the show, plot-wise or story-wise, by Kathleen Kennedy or Leslye Headland, other than the fact that we do know one thing. It is about how the Sith infiltrate the Jedi Order. That's about it and all we know on an official scale. Now, what is happening behind the scenes is that it is a High Republic-based series, 80 plus years before the events of The Phantom Menace, Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and not just that, it's also going to have a lot to do with emerging dark side powers. Now that brings us to what is really going on with the Acolyte as of late. Now we know that there's been problematic situation after the other for quite a number of months now, ever since they began filming the actual series. Leslye Headland has been really attempting to undo a lot of George Lucas's work. So, with many Star Wars TV shows in the works by Disney and Lucasfilm, a couple of which under development by Kathleen Kennedy, such as Skeleton Crew and the Acolyte, have been running into many issues behind the scenes. As for the Acolyte, just recently more problematic situations arrived for the show that involved one of the major scenes for the series by Leslye Headland. Now further, it's noted that one of the scenes that Favreau and Filoni worked on with the Acolyte involved something substantial with the character of Darth Plagueis. This was when Jon and Dave were under Disney's order to come to the Acolyte's crew aid to insert some shocking moments in the show. There was set to be some kind of Darth Plagueis cameo in the series that has since been removed by Kathleen Kennedy and completely erased and replaced with something entirely different that Kennedy and Leslye are working on that is said to be more expensive to film and create. Now, let me just pause here for a second. This is not surprising at all. It doesn't faze me in the slightest that Kathleen Kennedy would cut something so awesome and something so eye-opening as this. To have Darth Plagueis have a cameo in 2024 would have been the best thing that we could have looked forward to in that series. It may have been the one thing that could have, if anything, salvaged the show. Now, Kathleen Kennedy completely just disregarded that scene altogether, cut it from the actual series. Disney executives and higher-ups are very much frustrated with that, very angry over the fact that she decided to do that for creative reasons, quote-unquote. As you all know, Jon and Dave, they helped out with Skeleton Crew and the Acolyte for a very short time, for about 2 whole months, where they took part in adding a lot of scenes here and there, some of which got cut by Kennedy, others of which stayed. So you will have some Jon and Dave content in both of these shows, which is why I think when you watch them, you're going to see a glimmer of very much over-the-top, awesome Star Wars material provided by Jon and Dave. You're going to know the difference immediately when you're watching the contrast literally change from what Kennedy and Leslye created to a scene that Jon and Dave created. You're going to know as soon as possible. Now, with that being said and all, the fact that they erased, Kennedy and Leslye speaking, the fact that they erased that just goes to show you that they don't want anything related to the prequels or anything that was related to George Lucas or anything like that that he created. We know that Leslye openly stated that this show really is going to change how you view the prequel trilogy. It's going to change some of the lore, some of the canon, and she herself even admitted that she's not even really a Star Wars fan. I mean, can you actually just try to kind of put that together in your mind, somebody who's not a Star Wars fan, making a series as big as this, that's going to hold a lot of connections to the Phantom Menace, and a lot of retcons will be made. It's just making you wonder how disastrous it might really be in this scenario. But anyways, moving on to the next thing about all of this is that Jon and Dave, however, are not worried about this, since they still have their show called Circle of the Wills, that they are using to debut Darth Plagueis in a full episode as well. Now, in case you guys did not know, we talked about this in Circle of the Wills, a live-action upcoming anthology series. It's going to showcase how Plagueis met his demise at the hands of Palpatine in live action for the first time. So moving on to the next thing, Disney higher-ups were very frustrated when Kennedy decided to cut the Plagueis cameo out that was said to jump ahead in time a little bit closer to the events to the Phantom Menace. Darth Tenebris was also set to take a big part in this and as a cameo in the show, on a rocky world that was always dark with a full moon. So that's the big problem with the Acolyte, is that it's setting Disney back quite a number of millions of dollars back in revenue, and it's only causing more issues on Bob Iger and the higher-ups over at Disney. Not quite sure which planet that may have been, but I digress. The cameo in the series on a rocky world was very mysterious. It was said to be a short and sweet cameo meant just before the credits roll for the last episode of The Acolyte, showcasing Tenebris teaching Plagueis a lesson about the dark side. Kennedy cutting this scene set Disney back a bit of revenue and is only causing more drama behind the scenes. Now look, Kennedy seems to have no clue about how you can put a big budget into a project and you could also lose a lot of that money when people don't necessarily care about it or tune into it or unsubscribe because of it on a streaming platform. In movie theaters, typically it's all about, are there repeat viewings? Is it spreading by word of mouth? And how many ticket sales are they getting? The thing about streaming that they have to worry about is the content and whether or not people are going to ditch their Disney Plus service over what they just saw. That's kind of like how they would typically lose revenue, because they're not relying on ticket sales in the Disney Plus platform. So this is a very crucial thing, and Disney realizes that, this just set them back more money, and if they lose people out of Disney Plus, that's going to be even more costly to them. So it's a real big scrambled, mess right now when it comes to the Acolyte. There's nothing that they can really do at this point other than trying to salvage some scenes here and there and how they can really put things in order better. But to be honest with you guys, I don't see them canceling the show. I don't see them shelving it. But what I do see is that they are going to keep downgrading it. They already did, and they will continue to do so. And we will hear about that time and time again, probably on a monthly or a bi-monthly basis, So anyways, guys, fill me in below in the comments what you think about all of this below, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, let me know what you guys have to say about all of this below, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Gun in hand, we are alone again. From night to moon, we hear them moans again.